www.healthcmi.com. Today, acupuncture reduces MRI claustrophobia. This is an interesting study. If you go to healthcmi.com and click on news, there's thousands and thousands of research articles covering acupuncture and herbal medicine and traditional Chinese medicine. This article, published March 8th, 2019, is entitled Acupuncture Reduces MRI Claustrophobia. What the researchers discovered at Heilongjiang University of Traditional Chinese Medicine is that if someone has an acupuncture treatment prior to an MRI, they are far less prone to claustrophobia. That's fear in enclosed spaces. They have less nervousness, less panic attacks. The procedure goes well. So they tested people who are prone to claustrophobia with MRIs. And the problem with this is that people with claustrophobia tend to avoid the MRI when they need it or cannot even complete the procedure when they need it. There are open MRI machines, but they're not as common as the closed type, at least at this time. So if someone's put in a tube with loud banging sounds, they might actually have a little claustrophobia problem. This research showed that acupuncture had over a 92% total effective rate with, let's break it down. 37 out of 40 patients improved, and when you break that down further, 21 had very significant improvements, 16 had significant improvements, and 3 with no improvements. So this was compared against 2 different sham acupuncture groups and a blank control group. The blank control group, they only had 17.5% of the people faring well, whereas you had 92.5% doing well with acupuncture. And the sham groups didn't do well either. So the simulated fake acupuncture didn't work, where true acupuncture points did work. So what this suggests is if people are prone to claustrophobia, it might be very wise for them to have an acupuncture treatment prior. Granted, acupuncture is very comfortable and soothing. It can induce a trance-like sleep-like state. It puts someone in a very peaceful state in general. Those familiar with it know you might even fall asleep on the table, even if it's the middle of the day when getting acupuncture. However, I gave some thought to this, and I realized if someone has claustrophobia, they might feel trapped in enclosed spaces. But they also need to adjust to acupuncture, where even though you're not in an enclosed space, they still can't really move about with most types of acupuncture. Granted, auricular, ear acupuncture or scalp acupuncture, you can walk around, you can go jogging, what have you, it doesn't matter. But with some body style acupuncture points, it is best to lie down without moving. If you adjust the points by moving, it could cause some discomfort. So that might psychologically train the patient to relax in a position without having to move. So I thought that's an unusual effect of having acupuncture. Now, that wasn't fleshed out in this study. The relaxing and sedative effects of acupuncture alone, which we use commonly as acupuncturists, and the studies support that. Go to healthcmi.com, click on news, and look at all the research, how acupuncture, for example, can heal people with panic attacks, helps people with depression, and is a good treatment for insomnia. We say Shen or spirit-related things, that it helps release these traumas, balance what we call the DMN network in the brain. The default mode network of the DMN is when the brain is at rest, when at peace, and it's not task-oriented. Acupuncture can restore that normal process when the body is not physically doing something with intention, that it can fully rest the brain in the proper state and give that body the relaxation it needs. So to my thinking, I'm suggesting that the procedure itself of acupuncture requires some discipline to lie down and not move about for a little while, and that too might help the patient get ready for the MRI procedure. Nonetheless, acupuncture in and of itself, for those other types of conditions I mentioned, the insomnia and what have you, does have significant results. So there is what we call the Shen spirit or calming aspect of acupuncture that can help the patients. It leads me to think that an integrative model of care is very important for patients suffering from claustrophobia, because if they're going to need an MRI, this would be it would be an act of kindness. It would be a very nice thing to do for these people, to let them relax, get into a very peaceful state. Now, granted, they can receive sedatives as well. Keep in mind, these are patients who had claustrophobia and could not get an MRI even with some light sedatives. So I don't know personally the procedure. I mean, do you need to knock people out completely? Is that even something you can do with an MRI? That I don't know, and I haven't read research on that. I would have to go to a radiology department or ask the radiologists we work with more about that. But what we do know from this research, and as an acupuncturist, that if you give someone acupuncture prior to the MRI procedure, they will have a better experience and are much less likely to become severely nervous or have a panic attack. As an aside, the research on panic attacks with acupuncture, some of it published at HealthCMI, is extraordinary. So much that people having panic attacks, even with a handful of treatments, may no longer get any panic attacks whatsoever. However, the acupuncturist has to be very sensitive to their needs and be there if there's an emergence issue that occurs during the treatment when they're releasing that tension. Now, this is not to say that those with panic attacks will not have some chronic anxiety issues after the acupuncture, but the severe phase of it is often more easily controlled. And then with therapy, sometimes with medication, lifestyle modification, exercise, diet, meditation, and acupuncture, we can then work on the underlying anxiety issues. But acupuncture, in many cases, is extraordinarily effective for panic attacks itself, which I believe is one reason why it's so effective for the treatment of claustrophobia. So take a look. Go to healthcmi.com, click on news. I think you'll find it very interesting. Thank you for listening. www.healthcmi.com.